Hello and welcome to the No One Asked You podcast. This series, I am once again joined by my wonderful co-host, That Don Kitty.
Dorkus and I are sharing our experience reading The Way of Kings for the first time. Each episode we will summarize what we've read and discuss the experience along the way.
This is Storming the Archives, The Way of Kings, and today we discuss The Prelude.
The Prelude!
Yay, you did it!
It's required.
Indeed. Hello, everyone. This is the first episode of a new series. Kita and I were told that reading roughly the first 3 books of the Stormlight Archives wouldn't spoil Mistborn for us, and I was eager to get into this, as I've heard this series referred to as his magnum opus, Brandon Sanderson's magnum opus. So I was eager and excited and motivated to get started, and Kite very generously offered up her time to join me in this endeavor as well.
Hi.
I want to set a few expectations going in for those of you who are watching this series from Mistborn Abridged and Ascension Unleashed. We're not going to be doing a full reading the way we do with the Mistborn trilogy. This is going to be a bit shorter, more free flow. We don't really have a plan for how it's going to go. Other than that, we're going to summarize what's in each chapter and discuss it and call out unique elements that we are enjoying or not.
Enjoy.
Before we get into the prelude, I would love to discuss with you, Kite, what are you expecting out of this series going in? How do you feel this series was sold to you, so to speak? And what do you know about the series before going into it?
The impression I have of the Stormlight Archive is in comparison to Mistborn. So I'm expecting more complexity than Mistborn, a different, just a richer sort of story, than Mistborn. But the thing is, I really love Mistborn, so I'm expecting to love this as well. I don't have any expectation of like just finding it too different to Mistborn. I think it would be better. So that's as much as I can say. I'm sure you've got way more interesting things to say about it.
A handful of things. For those who don't know, I have seen Brandon Sanderson's writing lectures, so little tidbits of information that I only half remember or barely remember have made it into my psyche, at least a little bit, I'm sure. I'm under the impression that this is supposed to be an epic fantasy, so I'm expecting this big, complex world, as you were saying. I'm expecting a lot of intricacies. My understanding is that Brandon Sanderson has improved tremendously as a writer in between Mistborn and Way of Kings, so I'm looking forward to observing that. I'm told that there is a uniquely long onboarding period for Way of Kings, that there's going to be a tremendous amount of setup, whatever that means. I think Brandon Sanderson has said something to the effect of this is his heart story, the story that he has always really wanted to tell as best he could, and he wanted to make a world where characters wear massively heavy armor and giant swords, like those impossibly large swords. So I'm kind of expecting a little bit of that. Kita and I are only starting to learn little hints about what the Cosmere is. We really don't know very much, other than that it's not unlike the MCU. But I know that this takes place in the Cosmere. That's more or less my laundry list of things to... Oh, yeah, I know that there's a phrase. It's actually on the back of the book. I hear this phrase come up frequently. Journey before destination. That sounds really neat, and I like it. So I'm looking forward to see that occur.
Mm-hmm. I'm feeling the vastness of what Brandon Sanderson has created here in the Cosmere. Like, there's so much I don't know, and it is quite tempting to be like, okay, I need to go and read about what it is, and learn about it, and then read the actual books. I'm enjoying this kind of approach to it, though, as if there is no internet, there are no videos explaining and things like that. That's what I experienced when I first read The Wheel of Time. So I want that experience of just learning, going along. The thing is, I was lonely with Wheel of Time. Nobody was reading it with me. But now, yeah, this having Brandon Sanderson fans to go through it with is quite cool.
Yes, this is very exciting. Please don't spoil in the comment section. It would be tremendously appreciated. We've been very fortunate thus far with a wonderful audience who has been very good about not spoiling things. So we are extremely grateful for that. But yeah, this Prelude chapter was just screaming grandiosity, grandioseness, epicness, big. Would you agree?
History, yes, endless, like world building pro max.
Yeah. So the Prelude starts with a character, Calic, walking through a battlefield, a very celestial sort of battlefield. It's Monster Hunter world. There are these giant rocky beings that have apparently killed Calic, who has died before. He's centuries old. He's looking at all the bodies, not just humans. There's blood everywhere, not just red blood, but orange and violet. He makes his way through the battlefield, and he gets to this meeting place that he had set up with 9 other comrades, I will say, fellow soldiers, compatriots, his team, his squad. And there's only one person there waiting. There's one person and 7 blades that are plunged into the ground. And this is unusual, he observes. He calls out to his comrade, Jezrien, who is a king. He's very noble. He's very regal. And Calic almost breaks down. He says he can't do this anymore. Between these battles, he goes back to this hellish place where it seems like he's tortured and he's breaking down, and Jezrien tells Calic that one of the 10 of them died, but they won this battle, and that it is a miracle that 9 of them survived. He tells Calic that a decision has been made, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, Kite, but a decision was made between the rest of the group and Jezrien, without Calic there, that they are going to abandon their oath, or their oath pact. And in so doing, they are essentially condemning this one comrade that died to this hellish existence that Calic seems to fear so much. Jezrien and Calic summon their sword, and they plunge it into the stone with the others, and they basically pick opposite directions, and they take off, agreeing never to speak to each other or seek each other out again. And that was the Prelude chapter. Kite, what did you think?
It plunges you straight into it. The world is crazy and new to me. That all of these different there's a, you discussed, you said there's a long onboarding process, whatever. This is unit 1, and it's like there's all these different terms that I'm trying to keep track of, like the surge binders, the dust bringers, the what's the desolation, and we've got this hell, we've got the some deity or something that's, or the Almighty, and what's the oath pact? The oath pact is now ending, and all of these things. So it's so much. And I mean, we're used to this with Mistborn trilogy, or whatever you want to call it, that you have mysteries, and it just will continue to, you just are ready to learn more and more about the world. So he presents the world to you, and you just it opens up as you go along. So I'm excited to understand this.
Well, it's wonderful to hear you say that, because one of the notes that I put down was this chapter does a really good job of, the characters aren't telling the audience things because the characters know what they are referring to. It's okay that we don't know what the radiants are because the characters do. And what Brandon Sanderson really excels at with this Prelude chapter is I'm okay with not knowing because I have become attached to this character and the action and what the character is experiencing.
Yeah, exactly. It's on purpose. And you look, we have forgiven exposition type of things in the beginning of a book. If that had been added, like little bits of it, yeah, we would say that's maybe a little bit clunky. We've seen that. Sorry, I know we're going to a lot of this, especially initially, will be compared to Mistborn. We are currently in the beginning of the second Mistborn book, and one of our notes in the beginning was, okay, that's a bit clunky, but we understand that the exposition, it's exposition time because you're in the new book. Here, he's not done that. He hasn't explained things, but I don't feel like if he does explain it, it would have been bad. I'm just saying this is on purpose, and it's a good on purpose. So there's two different ways that he's done it.
And it doesn't feel like too much.
Mm-hmm.
I smiled to myself when I read the description of the Thunderclast because I know you like Monster Hunter so much, Kide.
Mm-hmm. Monster Hunter.
Yeah.
Oh, I just I thought of the monster that actually reminds me of this. I don't know why. It's probably inaccurate, but I thought of Shara Ishvalda. It's got like a rocky outer layer, but it's more of a spot and stuff. I'll show you what it looks like. But yeah, that's just the thing that I thought of. There's a lot more rocky monsters in Monster Hunter, but I thought of just a colossus like Shara Ishvalda would be cool. And also the word.
Excellent. And Kalik is centuries old. And between that and Jezrien's nobility and the celestial nature of this battlefield, I'm really feeling the grandiose nature that I think Brandon Sanderson wants us to experience from this series. All in this first prelude, yeah?
Oh, yeah. And I mean, he's died several times. So it's not even just that he's lived that long. There is several deaths. Dying was rarely pleasant, that sort of thing. So and that's up front. Like we've got that as fact immediately. There's no mystery about it. It's okay. There is mystery of like why and how and whatever, but it's like no, that can happen. Just by the way, immortality. Here it is. That as opposed to immortality the way we've seen it in Mistborn, having to be a certain kind of trick and a certain kind of. This is way bigger because there's an almighty and there's basically like a hell.
So and that was really interesting. That was so interesting because there were some definite hell imagery. Those fires, those hooks digging into his flesh anew each day, searing the skin off his arm, then burning the fat, then driving to the bone. He could smell it. Almighty, he could smell it. But they're fighting something called the desolation. So like from the word desolation, one might presume bad things about that. But this is a guy who experiences hell regularly. So it's like in my mind, I want to think of him as good, but like maybe he did something, maybe he like made some sort of deal with the devil for his immortality for the sake of or something.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because also just thinking about it, yeah, so there is this oath pact. What is the oath pact? And it seems like they have had this choice. So let's discuss this mechanism of you die and you go to the hell place, right? And then you come back in, because it seems like there's many desolations, because he talks about, so every time there was a desolation, they did this and this and this. So there's that, okay? And the enemy was becoming more formidable, basically, that there is something to that effect that said. So there is an eternal enemy, it seems like. There is, however, if you survive these desolations, you still have to go back, and that is an obligation, and that is something to do with the Oath Pact. But then now they're breaking it by not going back. So it makes me wonder what you can do that. Okay, what's the consequences of it? Why were they going back before? And they're like, and also they are, like you said, they're leaving one behind. They do talk about one man suffering versus.
And we're going to talk about him.
Yeah, because they've left one guy behind, so he can continue this cycle. But the rest of them, listen, it just so happened that they survived, and they also could have left the guy we're with. Currently, they could have left him.
And that, we're going to talk about that one because Jezrien says, we weren't certain if you had survived. They left regardless. Everyone else left. Jezrien was chosen to wait for Kalik, but none of them were certain. And this big deal is made out for Jezrien, at least, when he says, better that one man should suffer than 10. For Jezrien, it could well have been 2 men, and how much better that is than 1 or 3, up to this guy. But it does not sink into Kalik's psyche that he could be in Talonal's place as well right now. Yeah?
Yeah. He's just so happy it's not. Like
yes.
He was already, before he even sees Jezrien, he is thinking about he doesn't want to go back. And then he also sees this in Jezrien. He says, oh, this man's just as broken as me. He also doesn't want to go back. So it's like he's also
everyone else in the group.
Yeah.
Everyone else in the group had these exact same thoughts.
But there was enough of some sort of obligation to someone remaining that they spared him. They let him know, by the way, we're not going back. Because imagine he goes back, because you have to. So I don't know how this going back occurs, but that's usually you're supposed to meet afterwards. It seems like every time this happens, they have a meeting place, as they always do before each battle. They say this is where we meet afterwards. And that's when they go.
Yeah.
They could have just not told him. So he was very close to also just continuing this cycle anew with 2 people as opposed to 8 fighting. And who knows what they're up against. But yeah, now it is just 1.
Yeah. And I have a very strong feeling that the fact that they are leaving this one man to an eternity of torture is going to weigh on them, and it is going to haunt them. And I also wonder moving forward, so is this going to be a rescue story where they try and rescue him? Or is he, Talonal, going to go crazy and then try and hunt them all down?
Yeah, from the betrayal. Like you don't get to just continue.
Because this could go either way right now, because we know virtually nothing. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens with that, what the result, how this hangs in the air. I also wanted to say Kalik's first line, "But I survived," is a very powerful opening line for a character, I think. And I think it's going to be indicative of something for this character, that he is a survivor.
As you brought that up, just considering the context you just gave it, with things weighing on them, it's like survivor's guilt. There you go.
Yeah.
But he's survived. That's fine. You're guilty for that. But then you've actually left somebody else who didn't. You left them behind. That's a big deal. Yeah. So I survived could be like a core character line for this person.
I want to call out his own blade formed in his hands, appearing from mists, wet with condensation. Cool, neat.
Yeah, I wonder what that obviously we're gonna go, yeah, Mistborn, like, because they're all somehow related apparently in the Cosmere. Somehow, we don't know. Don't need to tell us, because that's, like I said, for me in the beginning, I don't want to go and figure all of this out and say, oh, this is how they relate. I want to go through the big grand journey of figuring this all out, book by book, chapter by chapter, sentence by sentence.
Yes. I'm getting Highlander vibes. There can be only one. Also, there was an interaction. They see us as divinities. They have the Radiance. So in context, Radiance sounds like it's a group or an organization. Paladins, presumably. And obviously, if there's this war, they're fighting for something or on behalf of people. So there are people who would presumably be the victim of these desolations.
Victim and victors. Victors of this, in this battle, they are victims and victors. They've won this desolation, apparently.
Yes. Although it'll come back. Sounds like it's a temporary reprieve rather than a permanent thing. Like sort of like they've maybe contained it temporarily rather than stopped it.
Yeah, they have said that. They did actually say he will not remain bound. So
Yeah.
But so they're seen as divinities, and they are not just abandoning their own posts as just, their own fights. They're abandoning people. And then I don't know what the radiants are. That's an interesting. So it seems like it pairs divinities with radiance. So radiance seems like something that's less divine, but still powerful.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
this group of immortal beings come off as almost godlike in this comparison. Well,
yeah.
that is what a divinity is, but it makes sense. These guys are good at what they do, it sounds like.
But they're not doing it anymore. See ya. Well, one of them is.
Yes. Or he'll be stuck in whatever hell that he's been consigned to.
Yeah, what brings them back from this hell every time? Like, what is the process? Because it's not like they just chill there for a couple seconds. It's bad when you go back. And I suppose you are waiting to be summoned of some source. Oh, I'm just so excited to find out all these things.
Yeah, so that's the setup. I don't know how much more we can really add right now, knowing as little as we do, but I think that's the bulk of my takeaway from this right now.
Same for me. Excited to hear more, as usual.
Cool. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Okay, thanks, bye.
Thanks, bye.